Dive Podcast, straight talk on politics, national security, and America's future. With Robert Johnson and Linda Miller, we cut through the spin, tackle the tough issues, and give you the real story behind today's headlines. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell to stay informed. Welcome to this deep dive. Today we're looking at something, well, pretty complex. The ongoing trade relationship, maybe tensions is a better word, between the U.S. and China.
Right. It's definitely tense.
And we're zooming in today specifically on how all this is hitting foreign companies, the ones actually operating in China.
Yeah, that's a crucial angle. We've seen some reports that really shed light on the challenges they're facing.
Exactly. And maybe some potential ways out.
Yeah.
Or maybe just more roadblocks.
Could be both.
So our mission here is really to pull out the key stuff from what we're seeing, just to understand what these companies are dealing with in this whole U.S.-China trade climate.
Okay, so one of the big things that keeps coming up is this idea of they're calling it a double hit.
A double hit. What does that mean exactly?
Well, think about it. If you're a company, maybe you need to import materials, components, whatever, into China to make your product.
Okay. Makes sense.
Then you make your stuff and you export the finished goods. The issue is these companies, they're finding themselves potentially paying tariffs twice.
Twice? Wow. Once on the way in and again on the way out.
That's the risk, yeah. It's a serious problem.
That sounds like it puts them at a huge disadvantage competitively speaking. I mean, how big a deal is this? Are we talking just a few niche companies? Or
No, it's actually pretty significant. Foreign companies and joint ventures.
Yeah?
The partnerships between foreign and Chinese firms, they account for almost a third of China's total trade.
Of a third? Really?
Huge. If you look at the 2024 numbers, these foreign-involved companies, they're doing over a quarter of China's exports. That's like, what, $980 billion?
$980 billion in exports.
And on the import side, it's even more over a third, around $820 billion.
So when we talk about this double tariff hit, it's affecting a massive slice of global trade.
Absolutely massive. It's not some small footnote.
Okay, so it's not just abstract numbers. Do we have, like, real-world examples?
Yeah.
Companies feeling this pinch?
We do. A good one is a Velong Enterprises. They're Chinese, making kitchen stuff, housewares for big U.S. retailers. Think Walmart, places like that.
Right. I know the type.
So they need this specific plastic. It's called tritane for some of their products. They import it from an American company, Eastman.
Okay.
Because of the tariffs, Velong pays a duty when that plastic comes into China. Then when they ship the finished spatulas or whatever back to the U.S., boom, another tariff hits them.
Ouch. So it just adds up.
Exactly. It really eats into their margins,
And it's probably not just American companies with factories in China facing this, is it? Like, other foreign companies could be caught too.
Oh, for sure. Say you're a German company, right? Manufacturing in China, but maybe you rely on some key component from the U.S. You're going to feel that squeeze too.
Yeah.
It really shows how tangled up these supply chains are. A fight between the U.S. and China sends ripples everywhere.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, let's get into the tariffs themselves. How high are we talking? What are the actual levels?
Well, on the U.S. side, tariffs on Chinese goods have climbed pretty high, up to 145% in some cases.
145%?
Yep. And there's even been threats, really, of potentially adding another 100% on top.
Wow. And China's response?
They've retaliated, of course. Their tariffs on U.S. goods are sitting around 125%.
So these aren't trivial amounts. They're game changers for costs.
Absolutely. They're mostly ad valorem, right? Percentage of value.
Yeah.
So with the massive trade volumes we mentioned, it adds up to huge financial burdens.
With tariffs like that. Yeah, the pressure on these foreign firms must be just enormous.
It is. There's a quote from Cha. He's at the University of Hong Kong's Asian Global Institute. He put it very bluntly. Foreign firms are being squeezed.
Squeezed. Yeah, that sounds about right. Paying tariffs on inputs and outputs.
Exactly. It's a really tough spot.
Is anyone thinking about, giving these companies a break? Any relief being discussed?
Well, there are reports. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce is apparently looking into tariff exemptions for companies in certain sectors.
Ah, okay, so targeted relief.
Seems like it. And we know some industries already have exemptions, so it suggests Beijing knows this is causing pain for businesses operating there.
Okay, that's the Chinese side. What about the U.S.? Any movement towards lowering tariffs, maybe easing things up a bit?
There was something around April 23rd. President Trump mentioned a substantial cut in tariffs on Chinese goods.
Substantial. Okay, that sounds promising.
Yeah, but he also made it clear they wouldn't go to zero. The Wall Street Journal suggested maybe something like 50 to 65%.
Still significant tariffs then, but a reduction.
Right. And the thinking seems to be it's a move to try and, dial down the tension with China.
Okay, that makes sense. But if there's this stated goal, or at least talk, of reducing tension, why is this trade war still dragging on? What's stopping a real resolution?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? One big factor seems to be President Trump's preference for dealing directly, leader to leader.
With President Xi Jinping.
Exactly. And while top-level talks are important, the reporting suggests this focus on a personal meeting is actually kind of jamming up the works at other levels.
How so? Wouldn't talking directly be the fastest way?
You'd think, but reports say the president hasn't really authorized his officials, the trade teams, to get into detailed talks with their Chinese counterparts in the meantime.
So, no lower-level groundwork being laid.
Seems not. Plus, there's no confirmed U.S. ambassador in Beijing right now, no designated lead trade negotiator. Apparently, the White House hasn't even reached out to the Chinese embassy to start those kinds of preliminary chats.
So it's like everything's paused, waiting for this potential summit.
That seems to be a big part of it. Ryan Haas, he used to work on China at the National Security Council. He basically said the usual channels are closed because President Trump wants them closed.
He prefers the direct approach.
Yeah, similar to his approach with Putin, apparently. He wants that direct line to Xi.
But surely there are other ways to talk, right? Other channels.
Well, Wendy Cutler, former acting deputy USTR, points this out. She says, look, there are lots of channels. The business community, former officials, people who know the issues and have contacts.
They could offer more flexibility?
Potentially, yeah. Maybe less high stakes, less political pressure than a big summit.
So why not use them? Is there resistance from the Chinese side too?
Well, there's some suggestion Beijing might be a bit wary of a big leader meeting.
Wary? Why?
Concerns maybe that President Trump might turn it into a bit of a spectacle. There was a mention of the interaction with Ukraine's President Zelensky as maybe shaping that view.
Okay. Optics concerns.
Possibly. The report suggests Beijing would rather Washington just appoint a, quote, responsible person to actually start negotiating how to end the tariff war, get the process started.
Has China appointed someone on their end?
Yes, they have. Back on April 15th, they named Li Chenggang as their new chief rep for international trade talks. He took over from Wang Shouwen.
So China has their person ready.
Seems like it. They're basically waiting for the U.S. to designate a counterpart so the actual discussions can begin.
Anyone else who might be able to help bridge this gap?
Yeah.
Experienced hands?
John Thornton's name came up, former Goldman Sachs president.
Right. Knows finance, knows China, presumably.
Yeah, he's apparently expressed interest in helping out. He's dealt with high-level Chinese officials before, like Foreign Minister Wang Yi.
Any interest from the White House?
So far, doesn't seem like it. No indication they're pursuing that offer.
Okay, just to recap the timeline here. This didn't happen overnight.
No, definitely not. The U.S. started putting tariffs on back in February. By mid-April, some hit that 145% level.
And China responded.
Yep. Raised theirs to 125% on U.S. goods. Plus, they restricted exports of some key minerals, things needed for tech.
Right. And then the U.S. threatened even more tariffs.
That threat of another 100% increase, yeah, so it's been this escalating cycle, tit for tat.
Okay, so trying to wrap our heads around all this.
Yeah.
What's the main takeaway, the bottom line for listeners?
I think the core thing is this. Foreign companies in China are really, really feeling the financial pressure right now.
From that double hit of tariffs.
Exactly. From both the U.S. and China hitting their imports and their exports. And figuring out how to fix this, well, it seems tangled up in how the U.S. president prefers to negotiate.
That focus on the direct leader meeting potentially slowing things down.
Right. It seems to be a bottleneck for getting the broader, maybe more detailed diplomacy going.
It really just hammers home how connected everything is globally, doesn't it? Big political decisions having these immediate, real-world impacts on businesses.
And potentially on consumers down the line, too. Absolutely.
Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. We are here to make things clear. New episodes every day.